Hello everyone and welcome back to MixBuzz TV mixing and mastering tutorials on YouTube. I'm your host David. Happy New Year everyone, happy 2017. And with this video I want to answer a question I've been asked several times this past week since I put out the picture of my now 4 distressors. Some of you guys asked me, why so many distressors? Why so many of the same unit? With so many choices out there, why not having different flavors, different colors, and so on? And while many of you experienced guys already know the answer, I thought making this video replying those questions would give me the opportunity to explain to those of you who maybe are new to the game or don't have much experience with hardware and analog hybrid mixing, why you see some of us engineers having multiple channels of the same unit. Now, obviously, I'm answering for myself. Each engineer might have different reasons as to why they have multiple channels of the same compressor or EQ or whatever, but generally we all have at least some reasons in common. Keep in mind that I don't record, I only mix and master, so I don't need pre's, I don't need tracking hardware quotes if there's such thing. My choices in hardware are based around mixing and mastering. So why so many? Well, the main reason is because when you mix hybrid analog, you need multiple channels, and you need multiple channels going at the same time while you're mixing, while you're adjusting things. I say this because many people mixing or producing at home are often under the impression that once you have 1 or 2 units, that's enough for mixing analog, quotes, because they plan on printing tracks through those 2 pieces, 1 track at a time. And while that is a way, and even I do print few tracks from time to time, the truth is that that workflow is unthinkable for a professional mixer who uses and relies heavily on hardware for his mixes. And there are many reasons for that. The most important is time. When you have deadlines, the time you would need to spend printing tracks would be way too much. And what if you need to change something as the mix evolves? You'd need to go back, recall, reprint. No way. And I understand the time issue is not really something home guys understand fully. That is something you understand when you have a steady flow of clients and deadlines all the time. But that's the reality of doing this for a living. You need to be fast. You need to deliver in time, and that goes on 12 months a year. Everybody's always in a rush, and if you're lucky as I am to be overbooked and have a steady flow of work, you better be fast. Because the faster you are, while keeping your standard the same, the more work you can get done. The more work you can get done, the more money you make. Make sense? Just to give you a number, these days I mix about 300 tracks a year. That means more than a mix a day, counting those few days of the year I don't work. See, now you get the idea of how important time becomes. Whether you want to be fast to be able to enjoy a few days of rest here and there, or you just want to be able to increase your workload if you have more work coming in. Time becomes one of your priorities. And with printing tracks, not doable. So when I buy gear, my first question is, can this unit make my result better and my mixing faster? If the answer is yes, then I can justify buying the unit. If it sounds great, but it takes me an hour of fiddling to make it work, it's off the table. I can't allow myself to play like that. Now, the other very important reason that those of you who don't mix with multiple analog channels can't really know is interaction. And just to give you an idea, my hybrid setup at the moment sees about 36 channels of analog outboard when everything is on and used. So it's not even that much. But let's take, for example, my 4 distressors. I usually have the lead vocal on one, the bass on another, a mono drum crush on the third, and usually one is free for whatever else, or I link 2 of them and use them in pair on something, usually stereo drums. So in this case we have lead vocal, bass, and drums, without a doubt 3 key factors in a mix, right? Now when I adjust one of them, the whole mix shift one way or another, energy shift one way or another, and I need to be able to adjust the rest on the fly if I need to. I can't print, then adjust, then reprint, and then readjust, and so on. It's simply not possible. Or better, it would be possible, but it's not how analog or hybrid mixing works. So you see, real analog mixing is not running your mix through one unit or a few tracks into it. It's about pushing and pulling dozens of channels and see how the hardware react and interact with you, with the whole mix, paying attention to the shift in energy and balance that happens as you adjust things and react to them in real time. And most time adjusting two elements at the same time. Maybe Q1 and compressing the other, or compressing two elements at the same time. Maybe the saturation on the vocals was great 20 minutes ago, but now I need to switch it from the more aggressive distortion 3 on the distressor to the mellow 2, or take it out completely, or adjust the input because I made an automation move and now levels are too hot going in. And maybe because of that, now I can push more saturation on my 2-bus, either with the Dione or the Neve 542s. See, these are just examples, but you can't do these things if you don't have multiple channels going at the same time. This is a big part of analog hybrid mixing that is hard to explain to those who never experienced it. The one analog piece thing works on the 2-bus. If you can only afford one analog piece, because we all have to start somewhere, my advice would be get a 2-bus compressor. None of that summing bullshit and static things that you just slap in on the 2-bus and hope for the best. No, get something that gives you interaction. A 2-bus compressor will be my first choice. That will give you the most bang for your bucks. That's the one piece that, short of having 20 plus single channels of hardware, will impact your end result more than anything else. But going back to the subject, the 1,000 choices you make when you have hardware inserts or analog parallel channels are all related one another, and there's no other way to do this if not to have them all going at the same time. And it's not just about time, it's about workflow. It's about having things at your fingertips, being efficient with your gear, knowing it inside out, and know what is going to happen when you push into it or when you back off, and how the units react with each other. Another real-life example of this interaction, my lead vocals is usually distressor first, and then the vocal group stereo goes to my compressor, the Elysia, that takes care of the last couple of dBs, spikes that pass through, piercing spots that pop out here and there and need to be tamed, stuff like that. 1-2 dB at the most on the compressor when, I have 12 dB of compression on the distressor. The point is, on the distressor, I have different type of saturation I can choose. But the compressor also have its warm button, which is a saturation. With the way the two interact, you have to have them running at the same time. You can't hope to be able to predict these combination, what is going to happen with the next vocal or the next track or the next chorus. You know, because you have experience, but there are way too many variables. So you have to have them going at the same time and adjust them on the fly, especially on something so important like a lead vocal. And this brings me to the next reason, variables. This is my personal opinion, so take it for what it is. But for me, the more variables you have in your workflow, the more things you can't predict, the harder it's going to be to get the mix done and the longer it's going to take you. And to have excessive variety of gear adds to that. And please notice I said excessive, because in the end, I do have more than 10 different types of compressors, so I do have variety. I like variety, but I'm not going mental about it. I'm not a gear collector. I'm a mixing engineer, and there's only so much information we can retain. And to have 40 channels, all different EQs or compressor, all different colors, it would give me headache. I would spend hours guessing and trying a combination and never get anything done. Because like I said, we can only retain so much information. Our memory is limited, especially on something like music, sounds, different colors. We kind of remember, we kind of know, but every time it's different. And we already have a gazillion variables every mix. That is unavoidable. Different songs, different instruments, different musicians, different everything. Every single time, every single project. So for me, when I find a good sounding unit that is versatile and that consistently works over and over, I know I have at least one staple, one variable less to worry about. The stressor have been proven to work on vocals for me over and over again, on dozen tracks. Great. Let's pin it there. Let's take the guesswork out of it. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I might not try and use something different every now and then, because I will. I will try different things if I feel like it. But the point is, I don't need to try that one. I know it works. There's no guesswork, just in case, things go to shit. And the same goes for other pieces that I have in key places, if you will. I know they work there. I will try other things, and there are times when something else will work better. But worst case scenario, I know I can get result with my usual setup and my usual routing and those key units in those tracks or groups. And this hopefully will also prove you another thing that you often hear me and many other professionals saying. It's about how you use the gear. It's not the gear itself. For example, let's take the 1176s. I sold my two 1176s and I got two more distressors. Now, would I ever say that the 1176 is not a great compressor? No way. The 76 is an amazing compressor. But for the way I work, for what I need, and for my personal taste, I realized it was too limited, not versatile enough, and I wasn't using them as much. I was almost forcing myself to use them on occasion just because I felt bad not to, just because I felt bad to leave them off. And every time I did, I was thinking, well, if I had another distressor though. So I knew that was the time for me to realize that the 76, an industry standard, wasn't the best choice for me. Despite I've successfully mixed many tracks with them, I realized I could get more work faster out of other units. And for some reason, that's not something easy to realize, believe me. The whole world uses the 76, and it did it for ages. So how comes it doesn't work for me? Well, I have my style, I have my methods, and I have my taste. Can I make the 76 work for me? Sure. But if it makes me slower, or requires too much tweaking, or the gain staging doesn't agree with the rest of my gear, pretty important thing, then fuck it. It has to go, and I need to get other things that works better for me. And lastly, a very important aspect in mixing in general, but in analog, probably even more, and that is consistency. You need to be consistent if you do this for a living. Chris Lord-Alge says this often. I'm sure you've read or heard them going all excited and be, am I consistent or not? And this is something else hard to explain to home studio guys who might work only on their own music or one genre. Consistency is very, very hard to achieve when you work with different musicians, different clients, different projects every week. You can nail one mix, but can you nail 50? How about 500? Can you have the same quality and level across different genres and different songs? With all the variables that different songs and recordings and artists bring to the game, that's hard. That's so hard. So when you hear an engineer being excited because he's consistent, that's why. And if you're lucky enough to be somewhat requested for your taste, for your work, for your sense of aesthetic, for the added value you bring to the mix as an engineer, whether it's how you use effects, how you do delays, whether it's how you mix kick and bass, or simply just the overall tone and style of your mixing, you have to be consistent, because that's why they want you to mix their stuff. It's that sound, it's your style. And you have to be able, while respecting each and every song, to somehow inject your character, your personality in what you do, if that's the reason clients want you to mix their stuff. And this is just my personal preference. Some engineers have one of everything and they like it that way. But for me, having multiple channels of the same unit helps me with consistency and cohesiveness. The creativity, the versatility is in my brain, is in my ears, is in my inspiration. I don't need 130 types of different compressors or EQs, because that much variety would distract me. I would wonder, oh, how that sounds, how about that one, how about this other one? No, I enjoy variety and I need it to some extent, but 10 will do. Shit, 20, but I don't need 60. different, types of whatever. On a related subject, I do feel like some color just work best when you have multiple channels. And I know I'm not the only one. This is why SSL desks have been the mixing desk for decades. Same EQ, same dynamics on every channel. Makes sense, right? Some other very colorful, very recognizable unit might be best when used on one channel or two, or maybe a stereo one. But some other are more subtle, more versatile too, and you can push and pull and spread that something you like across many channels. And to me, that gives me the best result at the end and also helps gluing your mix together. That's another important thing. Many are under the impression that the 2-bus compressor, because it's on the whole mix, that is the only thing that glue the mix, which it does. 2-bus compression is a big part of what glues a mix together, but that's not all of it. And I would dare to say it's not even the most important factor in gluing your mix. What you do across 20, 30, 40 tracks is what glues your mix together, not what you do on your 2-bus. That helps, for sure. And if you think about it, it makes sense. It's not that you can fuck up 40 out of 60 tracks in your mix and then, hope that the 2-bus compressor will glue your mix together magically. It just doesn't happen that way. So yeah, for me, having that consistency on as many channels as possible is a big part of the end result. So in conclusion, we all like analog gear. Sure as shit, I do. And we like to have and try different pieces. That's the fun part. I constantly look for and try new pieces of gear. This is my job, it's my passion. I love it. But I think there's a fine line between being up to date, if you will, and actively trying to improve your workflow, your end result through gear, and being a gear collector, having a bad case of gas. And trust me, I've been there. I've been in that place where you look at all the EQs and all the compressors out there and you want them all. And the new ones are always so shiny and have great descriptions, and you wonder if that's gonna be the holy grail. Well, most likely is not. The holy grail is for you to get to know your gear inside out. Then you fine tune. Then you start purchasing specific unit that you like and might work only for you. Then you slowly start to recognize what really works for you, what really makes a difference, makes your work better, and what doesn't. And you will start buying things according to that. But to get to that point, it requires time and experience. So don't get discouraged if you don't get it right away, or if you can't decide between two compressors because you don't hear the difference between the two. It takes time. It's not just about what you hear when you A/B things. It's also workflow. And you see that the more you mix, the more you automatically go to something. And whether that is conscious or not, that happens because you know that works. And that is for plugin as well, not just for hardware. So yeah, as I often say, experience is very important. And that's a wrap. This is it for this video, guys. I hope it was useful. I hope you liked it. And if you did, please leave a comment down below. And don't forget to click the like button. Let me know what your favorite analog pieces are, what you're using. And if you have any question, leave it in the comment section down below. Join us on Facebook and Twitter to stay in touch with us and get all the news about the channel, upcoming videos and series, and access to exclusive content. Keep supporting MixBuzz TV by sharing the videos and spreading the word on blogs, forums, social media. Subscribe if you haven't already, and see you next time.